Hello once again, my fellow YouTubers. I'm back again with part 3 of my very long-awaited Q&A. No need for a elongated introduction, let's just get right on to our first question. And here we go. Our first question is from Jonathan Ashima. What is your favorite Thomas book? Not from the Railway series. Oh, that one's pretty easy. I've loved this book ever since I was a kid. The Monster Under the Shed. I think it's one of the best books they ever wrote. I did do a read-along of that book some time ago by myself, which was fun. I may or may not, though, want to do another audio story of that, maybe with different voice actors. I'm just not entirely sure yet. But yeah, that is my favorite Thomas book. Here's their second question. Which Thomas episode do you remember most? Way too many, to be honest with you. When I stopped watching Thomas a long time ago, all I had to do was just look at some of the titles off by the DVDs, and I instantly remembered most of the stories. Like, for example, Buzz Buzz, that's the one with James and the Bees. Ghostly Trick, that's when Percy pretends to be a ghost. Goes Fishing, when Thomas gets the fish in his tank. Or even Henry and the Elephant. Oh, gee, well, there's an obvious one. You see what I mean? So there isn't just one episode that I remember most. There are tons. Next question. What is your favorite Michael Jackson song? Oh, that's easy. You Rock My World. It was the very first music video my sister ever showed me when I was first getting into Michael Jackson's music. I mean, granted, I did see the cut version first before I found out that the original video was longer. But you know what? Whichever version you like more, regardless, it's an awesome song. And their last question, which YouTuber do you think is the best? I really don't know. I mean, I have my favorite YouTubers, but I can't just pick one over the other without sounding super biased. Whether it be someone from the Thomas fandom or if they're just a regular gamer, I just love all my favorites equally. So let's just leave it at that. Alright, here's our next batch of questions from William Waldrip. Their first question, what's your favorite Thomas Christmas episode? Ooh, hands down, it's gotta be Last Train for Christmas. This is how perfect a Thomas Christmas episode should be. Don't get me wrong, the model Christmas stories are good, but Brenner definitely did not hold back when writing these stories. I sort of get this sense of like a Polar Express kind of vibe within this story. It's not crazy or action-packed like the movie itself, but instead it shows us the true meaning of what the true intention at Christmas is really all about. When the engines all band together to help clear the tracks, they could have easily just given up. And all it took was that one tiny moment when SDH sees a family getting ready to go home and he instantly changes his mind and has all the engines going out so that Connor's passengers can all get home safely. And mind my saying, but amongst those passengers was a disabled child who Connor promised he would get his family home. And he did. That is why this episode is my favorite, because you can't get any more perfect than that. Next question. What's your favorite Wiggles video from 1998? Wiggle Time, Yummy Yummy, or Toot Toot? I like all three of these, but if I had to pick, probably Wiggle Time. Mostly because, well, it's the very first video I watched of them when I was very little. One of my aunts had got me that for my 4th or 5th birthday, I believe. I don't remember exactly. But this video is what got me into the Wiggles and has continued to remain as one of my favorites. Don't get me wrong, I thoroughly enjoy the other two, but this one, it just hits a little more closer to home. Next question, what's your favorite song from the Wiggles? Once again, that's an easy one. My favorite Wiggles song is their cover with Tim Finn, 6 Months in a Leaky Boat. You guys might know this from the Wiggly Wiggly World special. I remember the first time I heard it off Wiggly Wiggly World, it was a very big earworm for me. Until we ended up getting the CD, I'd play this song on loop well over 10 times or more. It led me up to searching the clip on YouTube and repeating that well over like 10, 20 times. till I eventually bought the song off of iTunes, and I'm still very much addicted to it. It's so crazy. And their last question, what's your favorite bonus feature on the Thomas and the Magic Railroad Blu-ray? Well, obviously, that's the entire rip of every single deleted scene, giving us a rough look at what was originally the movie's idea. I will say this, it's not entirely perfect, but it is very interesting. I wish, though, they would have kept most of those scenes, as some of them do make a lot of sense pertaining to other scenes that are in the final cut. I don't know why they did that, because that's why some parts throughout the movie don't make a lot of sense. They should have just left it alone with, well, maybe a few tweaks here and there, and it would have been fine. But yeah, that is my favorite bonus feature off the Blu-ray. Okay, here's our next batch from Tommy Bauer. What was your favorite Disney show, or shows, growing up? Oh, geez. Well, let's go back to the childhood days of Disney. Back in the day, some of my favorite childhood shows were Bear in the Big Blue House, Roly Poly Oly, Wiggles, New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Book of Pooh, PB&J Otter, Buzz Lightyear Star Command, 101 Dalmatians series, Higglytown Heroes. These are just ones I can think off the top of my head for the kids shows. But then you got the bigger kids shows, like Hannah Montana, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Wizards of Waverly Place, Phineas and Ferb. The list kind of stops there, though, because all the others I really wasn't that interested in. So yeah, that is my giant handful of some of my favorite Disney shows. And their next question, what is your favorite book to read? Well, I could be totally biased here and just simply say the Harry Potter series, but that's not the case, since I've actually not read all the books. There's actually 2 series that I have read that are at a tie. The Shiloh series, and this other book series called Anna Dressed in Blood. The Shiloh series basically tells the story of a young boy named Marty who tries to look after a little beagle he named Shiloh after he learns his owner has been neglecting him. And he basically tries to do whatever to hide the dog until he can find a solution to buy him. And then obviously there's a bunch of twists and turns. Shiloh ends up getting really hurt, and now Marty feels responsible for it. And again, he still tries to do whatever to buy this dog off his neglectful neighbor. It's actually kind of a sad story. The Anna story, however, I think, it's been a long time, but roughly it's about a group of kids who investigate this old haunted house where a young girl named Anna was murdered many, many years ago. I think this happens, again, I'm not entirely sure. I think some kids in the group do end up dying from the ghost of Anna until I think the mystery is solved, and then it carries on into the next book. Again, I'm like very vague on it. I do have to read that again at some point. But yeah, both are very interesting stories. If none of you have ever read these, then I do highly recommend them. You might actually enjoy them. And their next question, what is your favorite piece of Theodore Tugboat merchandise you own? That would be my Changing Face Theodore and Hank. These two have been my very favorite toys since I was really, really little. I remember when my grandmother bought them for me for one of my birthdays, and these toys went everywhere with me. They were like my best friends in the whole frickin' world. I'm not even lying. I'd play with them in the backyard. They would sit by my bedside. Hell, I even took them to school with me. I'm not even ashamed to admit that. When, though, they were eventually donated, again, it was like I lost my 2 best friends. It sucked. I eventually got them back from an ex, again, as a birthday gift after I graduated high school. And it's crazy because not only did I get those out of their boxes, but I got another complete set in and out of their boxes years later. So yeah, I have 3 complete sets of the Changing Face Theodore and Hank. I know, I'm seriously nuts for doing that. But yeah, those 2 will always be my favorite pieces of merch. And their last question, what is your favorite scene from the lost behind the scenes footage of Thomas Season 5? Simple, it's this. Here's our first question from Skulls Productions. Least favorite Thomas VHS from the classic era? Probably Thomas Breaks the Rules. You know, needless to say, but not all the episodes on that tape are really all that great. Says an awful lot when I only really like 3 out of the 7. Those being Old Iron, Dirty Objects, and Percy and Harold. And then again, these episodes are on multiple other releases. Only difference is the tape is narrated by Ringo. If I definitely had the choice to skip over this tape, yes please. And their next question, if you were given the money and time, how would you make a complete series DVD set of Thomas and Friends for Americans, including Shining Time Station? Well, I don't know about that, to be honest with you. If you're going to do a complete series, well then technically you're kind of copying what the UK did. We already got a taste for that with the early years DVD, which makes no sense because it's just UK Ringo and not the US dub. But if I was to do my own thing with it, that would be, you don't use Ringo Starr's dub, as I think there were some episodes he didn't dub in the US. So here, you do the complete series 1 to 4 of George Carlin, 5, 6 to Alec Baldwin, Michael Brandon, 7 to 11, and you stop there as 12 onwards had every episode on a DVD by that point. Now, Shining Time Station-wise, well, it's obvious, you have to make 3 complete series DVDs, and if you wanted to, you could add the 6 episodes of Mr. Conductor's Thomas Tales on them as well, 2 episodes apiece as bonus features. And as for the family specials, they could probably have a DVD of their own, if not you split them up into 4, which probably would make things a bit more complicated, but Personally, I feel like this is what should have been done with both shows, but alas, it's never going to happen. But hey, one can dream, right? And their next question, what's your opinion on the info regarding Rick Siggelkow's decision on not using Daisy or Percy's predicament in Shining Time Station and cutting Daisy out of Thomas for a while? It's enlightening, kinda, to tell you the truth. I mean, do you blame him? 'Cause, well, let's be real here. Daisy's design kinda looks a little trampy, and for God's sake, her theme sounds like frickin' stripper music. And plus, I really don't know how Daisy would have tied in with whatever episode unless it had something to do with, I don't know, maybe Schemer or the kids. Like, I don't know how that would work. And Percy's predicament, I'm really stumped on. Who knows, maybe it was kind of a blessing in disguise that Daisy didn't appear. And their last question, Day Out with Thomas or Theodore 2? Okay, now you're just teasing me here. Both are something I really want to do at least once. Now remember, I did say though that when I took a trip to Strasbourg many, many years ago, I did see the original Thomas, I just didn't get to ride him. Theodore 2, on the other hand, I've not seen, so I'd probably go with him first. Because I really not only want to see him up close, but I really want to take a ride on him in the worst freaking way. Thomas will always be there, so I can do that literally whenever I want. So hopefully one day, for either one or both, I will get my chance. And here's our first question from Trainboy22 Studios. What are your thoughts on Cuphead? Yet another trend that I'm really not into, so no opinion. Next question. If All Engines Go was in a different animation, what would it be? I don't even think there is a different animation style it could potentially be animated in, because it's still going to be cringe regardless. So what would be the point? I don't really have an answer for that. Sorry. And their third question, thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog movie 2? Well, here's a funny thing about that. I did buy the DVD, but I've not watched it yet. I just haven't had the time, unfortunately. I did see the original, and I really liked it. So no doubt in my mind, I know for a fact I'm going to like this sequel. When will I watch it, though? I don't know. I'm just focused on other things at the moment. But maybe soon I'll try to find some time and give it a watch. And their last question, who are your favorite James voices? I would tell you that, but that is a series of videos that I'm actually considering making sometime in the future. I eventually want to get round to ranking all the character voices, but I gotta go through each individual voice for each character, and I gotta really listen without having to be biased entirely. That won't be happening anytime soon, however, but we'll see how it plays out. And here's our first question from Mr. Daniel Tofu. Have you ever seen Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul? I've not heard of either one of those, so I don't have an opinion. Next question. Favorite Disney princess? Okay, well, to determine that, we have to look back at the classic lineup of Disney princesses, and I broke down everyone to see who is and who isn't. Despite what Disney advertises, Mulan, Pocahontas, Moana, and even Elsa, who was technically a queen, are not princesses. For those who are, you've got Rapunzel, Anna, Tiana, and technically Merida and Vanellope. I cannot count Rapunzel or Tiana because I've not seen Tangled or Princess and the Frog, so I'm not counting them. And the other three don't even come close to being personal favorites of mine. So now the list consists of Snow White, Cinderella, Aurora, Ariel, Belle, and Jasmine. And out of these 6, I think my favorite one is Jasmine. Mainly because she shows true compassion for when she eventually becomes a ruler of her own. She's very outspoken and isn't afraid to speak her mind on what's right and wrong. And if need be, she will definitely put her foot down and will put you in your place. Basically, Jasmine's a force to be reckoned with. That is kind of the reason why she's my favorite Disney princess. And their third question, favorite actor? Well, no shocker, but I don't have one. I've got a million favorite actors. And I've noticed that my list actually never stays consistent. I have this thing, depending on what I'm currently watching, one or a few actors will stand out to me, and then they become my favorites for a period of time until my very next phase. Currently, though, my favorite actor is Henry Cavill, who plays Geralt in the Netflix series The Witcher. This man is freaking hot. Don't judge. A couple of months will go by and, let's say, Andrew Lincoln or maybe Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who play Rick and Negan in The Walking Dead, will become my top favorite ones again. Or in another Netflix series I like, Lucifer, Tom Ellis, who plays the dashing devil himself, who is also, IRL, sexy beyond belief. And soon he'll be back in the top spot. Or maybe Colin O'Donoghue, who plays the, again, so sexily hot Captain Hook from Once Upon a Time. Or we could go really far back to the Crush days when I had a crush on Mr. Harry Potter himself, Daniel Radcliffe. It just depends on what phase I'm in. And currently, the Witcher series is why Henry Cavill is in the top spot. And their last question, thoughts on comic book franchises? They're fine, I guess. I'm not really a comic book nerd, to be fair. I think the only series that I ever read were the comics centered around Walking Dead. Those are actually pretty gory compared to the actual show, not gonna lie. But all the superhero-based ones like Superman, Spider-Man, etc., I'm not really interested in those. And here we have our first question from Headbanger142. What is your favorite Theodore Tugboat episode? I think this clip will give you your answer.
Well, at first, Theodore didn't know which felt worse, the hurt or the surprise.
Well, why'd you do that?
I move big barges like this,
Snorted Oliver. The big tug took Theodore's special job away from him, right in front of Shelburne and Benjamin Bridge and the Ferry Twins and everyone.
Second question, what new cartoons would you recommend? Honestly, the only cartoon I feel like I would personally recommend would probably have to be Bluey. Shocking, right? Because originally I was not interested in this show at all, but I was coming across so many clips on YouTube, and I heard so many people say nothing but good things about it. So I wanted to try it out for myself, and I actually love it. There are a ton of relatable moments that will not only get kids, but adults as well. I've already passed quite a number of episodes, and yeah, a few actually gave me a couple of lumps in my throat. I won't bullshit that. If you haven't seen anything of Bluey yet, I definitely think you should go and check it out. Third question, are you a fan of any game shows? Yes, I am. All the older adult ones I like. Here's a list of them. I'm into Family Feud, Deal or No Deal, Whammy, Chain Reaction, Catch-21, Divided, People Puzzler, America Says, and Wheel of Fortune. That's a majority of the games that I personally like to watch. But there are also some other kid-based game shows that I love, and one of my very, very favorite ones is Legends of the Hidden Temple. I watched that show when I was a really young teenager, and I freaking love this show so much. At some point, I do want to binge the entire series again when I do happen to find a spare moment. But yeah, that just gives you a clue of what kind of game shows that I'm into. And their last question, if you were to become any Theodore Tugboat character, who would you want to be? Well, he already is my spirit animal, so of course I want to be my boy. As I've mentioned before, Theodore and I are a lot alike. So it only makes the most logical sense why I would want to be him. 'Cause I am him. And here's our next batch from James Riddle. Would you ever like other people to help you with your Big Harbor reviews? As cool as that would be, I try to keep it within my circle of friends. Mostly 'cause it's just easier for me to contact them if I need anything. And plus, a lot of people I know haven't seen all the episodes of Theodore, which is a big requirement for me if you really want to join. So while that is a nice gesture to consider, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. I'm much more comfortable with the strategy I've currently got. And their second question, if the characters of Theodore Tugboat were humans, do you think the Queen Stephanie would be a giantess due to how huge her ship form is? Yeah, probably, I guess. I could see her being very tall, with maybe some kind of royal gown on with diamonds, because glam. She could maybe wear a tiara, or maybe a couple of rings on her fingers, and she would still carry the same personality she had as a model ship. She's just the nicest person you'd ever want to meet. So yeah, that's kind of my personal envision of what she would look like as a human. And their third question, would you ever think of doing fanfic readings on YouTube? Oh, absolutely. I've written some of my own stories actually for both Thomas and Theodore. I'm still in the process of writing said stories, I just haven't had the time to work on them recently. But hopefully when I get caught up with my other work, I may actually start doing that. And their last question, had there been more series of Theodore Tugboat, what would you have liked to have happen? Well, definitely one thing that I think everyone wanted to see, Theodore and Hank get their V-words. Where we left off after Theodore's big decision, not gonna lie, it was a bit of a letdown. They have done winter-themed episodes throughout the course of the show, so why not Christmas ones added on top? Now, Pugwash definitely needed some more screen time, so I would have loved to see some more episodes dedicated to her. Maybe have the Queen appear again and give her a proper send-off from the show. You know, these are just some of the basic ideas I can think of, but that'll give you your own idea of what I would have liked to see happen had there been a Season 6. And here we have our first question from Brandon Daniels 123 Fan Rocks. Thoughts on Thomas Season 22? Personally, it's the better season of the 3 seasons of Wubba, but it still sucks as a whole. I feel like you do have a few good episodes, and then it slowly goes down to okay or really, really bad. While 23 and 24's, a majority of them suck in general. That's why I think 22 slightly is better than the other 2 Wubba seasons, but not by very much, when a majority of them still kind of suck. And their second question, what is your favorite show besides Thomas and Theodore? Well, what am I not into that isn't Thomas or Theodore? There's a ton of shows I like. You've got Walking Dead, Doctor Who, Stranger Things, Witcher, Survivor, Ghost Adventures, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, you name it. I can't even pick just one overall favorite. These are all really cool shows. And their third question, what are your favorite YouTube channels? Well, let's leave all the Thomas channels out of this for a second, and I'll give you some examples of other channels that I'm into. I'm into a lot of gamer channels, such as Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Smosh, and these two new guys I've been watching, Austin John Plays and Philly Beats You, which big shout out to them, as I've been in a big Pokemon gaming binge lately, and some of their tutorials have really helped me out, especially since I'm on the hunt for shiny Pokemon in 2 different games I'm playing. I would list the Thomas channels here, but there's just too many to name, and again, I don't want to be very biased towards it, so I'm just going to leave it there for now. And their last question, thoughts on Thomas' YouTube World Tour? I don't really care about it anymore. Literally the only videos of that tour that I really liked were those comic book styled ones. Those were actually pretty cool. If they did more of the series in that style, I think I'd be a lot more interested. Hell, they should have just done the whole tour as the comic style. Because the live action videos they did and whatnot, I really didn't like those, to be honest. It just looks so odd. But yeah, the tour as a whole nowadays, it just exists. And we have our first question from TugsFan21. What Thomas and Friends story or movie would you end off with instead of the Royal Engine? Well, because it actually feels more like a finale than any other Thomas story or movie, in my opinion, I'd probably have to go with Journey Beyond Sodor, and here's why. This is Thomas's big adventure movie. Let's pretend that Big World Big Adventures doesn't exist for just a minute, and you've got this one instead. Had you taken all of Wubba away, minus Royal Engine, and have that either in season 20 or maybe 21, it doesn't matter, and maybe instead of having JBS being kind of squished in the middle of Great Race and the Wubba movie here, instead it could go Great Race, you run a couple of seasons with either one having Royal Engine slapped in somewhere, and then cap everything off with Journey Beyond Sodor. That is what they should have done, and left Thomas alone completely after that. And their second question, what is your favorite Unlucky Tug video? That's tricky, because I pretty much love a bunch of his videos that he's done. But if I had to pick one, I'd say either video from his complete history series. And I can't pick just one, because I'm fascinated to know all the history about Henry and Toby and Percy and James and so on. I'm very curious to know which one he's going to do next. Before I continue, I just want to say this. Shout out to the Unlucky Tug. I'm very sorry to hear what happened to your channel, dude. You've got my full support. And for those of you who have not yet subbed to the Unlucky Tug, I will post a link to his channel in the description. Next question. What Hit Era episode has the best moral? I think that has to go to Respect for Gordon. The Hit Era doesn't have a lot of stories with morals tied into them, but this one is very different. Both sides of the problem are both right and wrong in their own way. It wasn't right for the engines to tease Gordon about his firebox, but it also wasn't right for Gordon to demand respect from the others just because he felt belittled. However, Gordon is a hard worker, and that aspect shouldn't be overlooked. But by doing so, he came off as rather snooty, so it was totally fair that the engines called him out for it. And in the end, Gordon learned that respect is earned because anyone who works hard enough deserves a little respect, and not because you demand for it. As the Unlucky Tug would put it, it's basically a run a mile in my shoes kind of story, which we don't get very often. And I kind of wish they would have done more stories like this in the later series. And their last question, do you watch Engines of Roblox? No, I was into Roblox some years ago, but after a while it just got boring. So any kind of series on YouTube that has to do with Roblox, I don't watch any of that. And here we have our first question from Roundhouse Adventures. What's your favorite children's song? I'm not too sure what you mean by children's song. Like, from a show or just in general? I'm not really too sure how to answer that, so I'm just gonna move on. Their second question, do you try to stay out of drama in the Thomas community? Nowadays? Yeah, I do. But back then, if something happened, yeah, I was one of those people that had to stick their 2 cents in it. 'Cause I've seen some pretty nasty comments from Thomas Twitter users, like the whole kill yourself thing, for example. Not only is that a really unorthodox thing to say, but it just seems like that's the way anyone knows how to talk to one another nowadays. I should know because I've had that comment used against me, and it's disgusting language. I don't care what the situation is, you don't ever result in saying something as nasty as that. Because whether it is a good or a bad person, God forbid one person did actually take their life, you really don't want that on your conscience. When drama usually broke out, I always tried to be the level-headed one, and what I thought was one of my strengths turned out to be one of my weaknesses. 'Cause years ago, I ended up saying some pretty dumb shit. I'm not even going to go into detail about it. But I will say, it definitely taught me a lesson. It's best to just keep to yourself and stay out of shit that has nothing to do with you. You don't need to give your side on whatever situation breaks out, because what's honestly the point? You either repeat what's already being said by others, or you say something just as bad in return. At that rate, how are you any better than whoever is being called out? Not for nothing, but you also notice how so many people who do get called out for whatever it is they did, and they don't own up to whatever it is. Bear in mind, these are the same people who will say it loud enough for the people in the back. You should always tell the truth and come forward and admit, and through time everyone will forgive you, and all that other stupid crap. These are the same people who preach that, but when they get caught, they can't practice what they preach. So that's a bit hypocritical in my eyes. Meanwhile, I did a number of things to better myself as a person, and I'm much happier doing what I'm doing. If I can do that, why can't a majority of people do that either? So a word of advice, unless whatever happens has to do with you, then you do whatever to save your skin. But if it doesn't,
for once in your life, do the decent thing, don't get involved.
And their third question, McDonald's or KFC? Oh, McDonald's all the way. I have tried KFC maybe once in my life, and it just wasn't for me. It's just way too greasy for me. I'd rather eat McDonald's any freaking day. And their last question, do you think the World War II Thomas movie should have been made? Well, to be honest, I don't know, and I really don't care if it ever does. Every other year, it's the same thing. It's greenlit, and then it's pushed back. Either you're gonna do it, or not. Pick one. While it had a very interesting choice for a story, again, I don't really care about it anymore, and I really don't care if it's ever made. And here is our first question from El Tren de la Noche. What are your thoughts on all streaming services? They're fine, I guess. I only use a fair few of them, like Netflix, Disney+, sometimes Hulu or HBO Max if my mom watches anything interesting, but that's about it. Streaming is just the new norm. Normal TV kind of sucks now, and it has for a while. There's just nothing good on anymore. I mean, I don't really watch a lot of TV nowadays anyway, because I'm just so wrapped in so many other things. But if I do, then I only watch certain shows that I'm into. Yeah, you watch. All streaming services are just going to cancel normal TV in the upcoming years. So, enjoy it while you can. And here's their second question. To you, what's the most nostalgic Thomas YouTube video? Again, to be honest, I really couldn't tell you what I think is a nostalgic Thomas video. 'Cause even back when I first started watching YouTube videos, I wasn't particularly interested in a lot of fan-made Thomas videos, like trains, Roblox, or using the wooden railway or Trackmasters to do remakes or whatever it was. And that's kind of where I stand now. A bigger example would be if something came from the official Thomas channel, like the YouTube tour, for example. I can't even say that's nostalgic, because even then I didn't care about them that much. So yeah, I can't really give you a solid answer for that one. And their third question, what's your favorite dessert? My favorite dessert is a simple little bowl of ice cream with either sprinkles, M&Ms, or both. And it doesn't matter what kind of ice cream it is. I like either French vanilla, cookie dough, party cake, cookies and cream, Oreo. So long as it's one of those with either one of those toppings, preferably with some cookies and a small glass of milk on the side, that's my kind of dessert right there. And their last question, do you speak any other language other than English? Well, I used to speak a little Spanish when I was in school, but after almost 10 years of being graduated, I'm very rusty. I know a few little things, for example, like, me llamo Tay, but speaking complete sentences, I can't do that anymore. One of these days, though, I would like to learn a bit more Spanish again. Okay, here's our first question from Thomas and Moore. Do you like Cobra Kai? I have no idea what that is, so I don't have an answer. Next question. Favorite Thomas song? Well, as it stands, my favorite song is Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover. If you want to know my full opinion on the song, you gotta look at my Classic Series songs ranking video. When I say, though, as it stands, I still have yet to do my rankings for the hit and CGI era songs. Whichever songs make it to the top, I'm gonna be pairing them side by side with Don't Judge, and one of them will become my overall favorite. Not sure when I'm gonna get around to doing that, but hopefully it'll be soon. Next question, favorite Thomas YouTuber? Again, same basic principle. I'm into a lot of Thomas channels, but I can't just pick one over the other. A lot of the ones I'm sub to are mostly all friends, and I also, again, don't want to come off completely biased towards any one of them. Let's just leave it again at every Thomas channel that I'm sub to, I like them all equally. And their last question, cats or dogs? Definitely dogs. I've got nothing against cats, I'm just more into dogs. And here we have one of our final questions from the Thomas the Tank Engine channel. When will you review Make Someone Happy? I am in the process of rearranging the reviews I had planned for this year, and I was kinda hoping to do that one around maybe mid-May, if not June. Now I'm kind of falling behind a little bit more on certain projects, because I only have a month until the summer before my friend from England comes. So I'm not too sure if I'm going to be able to do that. I could potentially push it back till maybe August or September. I don't know. I still got to balance everything out. But once I figure it all out, you will definitely see it. And their second question, what's your favorite Gordon episode? You will actually find that out when I eventually do my mini-series of my top 10 favorite episodes for each of the Thomas characters. Work on that is probably not going to start until roughly next year, but be sure to keep on the lookout when I start making that mini-series. And their third question, thoughts on Season 6? I honestly don't think it's as bad as many fans make it out to be. I feel like it's very overlooked as a season. People only hate it because of Alec Baldwin's narration. And if you ask me, that's a real shit excuse. I'm not saying he's fantastic, and he's certainly not great 100% of the time, but I like some of the stories he narrates. Personally, the way I see it, there are some mediocre episodes in this season, and whether it's Baldwin or Angelus, neither or make the story better just by narration. It's mainly how the stories are written, which make them good or not. So you can't exactly say a story sucks with Baldwin's narration, but have yet the same story suck while it's being told by Angelus. You see where I'm going with this? It makes no sense. If the story sucks, one or either of the narrators don't make it better. This is not how this shit works, folks. Season 6, for me personally, is definitely in my top 5 favorites. I just think it gets way too much hate. And now for their final question. Favorite Thomas Season 8 VHS? Again, easy. that goes to Thomas's Solar Celebration. If you'll want to find out my full opinion on that tape, be sure to check out my review, and feel free to leave me your feedback on how you feel about this release.